All right. Good morning. Oh, I need to go turn off my space heater. 1 second. Here I am. Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Hi, Kelly. Getting started a little slowly today, so I'll let the music play for a bit, but I'll turn it off once I get into any actual content. I'm enjoying this music, so I hope you don't mind. I can barely hear it actually, but I do enjoy it. Also, I hope by now you all are accustomed to the timing of me starting these around 10. But I didn't send the announcement until just now, and the bot I have that's supposed to send notification whenever I go live didn't work for some reason. So maybe it'll probably post in a minute. It probably is something that just scans every now and then. So anyway, hope you all are doing well. Actually, I'll go ahead and pull that down. Yeah, I'm using the stream on Pretzel, and it's all these. It's a lot of music that is specifically licensed in a way that allows it to be played on Twitch without copyright infringement. In other words, I guess the creators of these this music, they're kind of promising not to send a copyright claim, I guess, if you use their music on your streams. And you have different radio stations, I guess, and just kind of like on Spotify. And I like the Chill station, but it's a lot of this guy like Harris Heller. I don't know who that is, but that person seems very prolific, and they have a ton of stuff that keeps showing up on these radio stations, and they're pretty good, and they're not, I don't know, I like them. I mean, it's just, I kind of like other stuff. So I was glad to see Chip Cell showed up there. That's an artist I enjoy their music. I like following them on Twitter, actually. So I was glad to see that pop up on the radio. Nice, electronic chill out music, chiptune kind of things. All right, cool. So looks like many more people are online now, so that's good to see. And thank you for saying good morning. That's always a good way to kind of record that you're here, and then lets me look back after the fact if I want to confirm who was watching and when. So if you haven't already, then please do say good morning. Looks like everyone currently showing is online did do that. Today we are going to be I'm going to be talking about metagaming, and I still am sort of struggling to get my head around the schedule for this week, but I think I have gotten my head around it. I just haven't fully expressed that structure in Canvas yet. But I'm going to give you what you need today to work on the metagaming project. So that's the main focus. Basically, I was thinking about it, and I do really want to talk about what I would call the material turn in video game studies, but also it occupies new media studies more generally too. It's a series of movements and ideas that focus conversations in a particular direction, starting in like the mid to late aughts, let's say. And it's really interesting. It's also where I kind of situate myself as a scholar, and so it's something that I really want to talk about. But I want to prepare you all for the metagaming project, and so I think metagaming as an idea is the logical sequel to the material turn, but I'm going to give those to you out of order so that you're more prepared to do the project, if that makes sense, and hopefully it does. Of course, if you are waiting and if you do the project later, it might make even more sense as you learn more about the material turn. But that's it is what it is. We're moving rapidly towards the end here as we approach the end of this term on this day, which I realized this morning is a palindrome. If you spell it like 1/20/21, right? I mean, it's a palindrome. So if you put that backwards, that would be 1/20/21 or 1/20/21. And it kind of got me thinking about how many other days might be palindromes, and there might be a few this year. Anyway, so doesn't matter. So today, I just plan on doing the one lecture this morning because the on your own work today is a bit more extensive in the sense that I hope that you will work on the metagaming project. So it's just going to be the one lecture. Of course, I'll be online all day if you want to chat about things. And I do hope as you complete your metagaming projects that you'll share some of that in Discord. I might even put up a discussion page in Canvas to give you a place to share things there too. But definitely Discord is a place where you can kind of share work in progress. I did make a metagaming channel, but it has a special purpose that I will explain shortly. It looks like some of you have already jumped into that, and I will explain what to do with that in a minute. But let's get started on this slideshow, as I like to do. Okay, so reminders. Make sure you work on the reflections if you haven't already. I keep reminding you about that because some of you still haven't done it. And also make sure you contribute to the discussion pages. These are the reading journals in Canvas. These are both informal, but they're important. And I don't want you to kind of blow it off because there's no points associated with these. There's no points associated with anything actually in this class because I'm kind of letting you choose how to spend your time. But these are important parts of how you're arguing for a grade ultimately. So these are important ways of completing the learning goals of the class. So on Friday or Saturday when you write your final grade rationale, you're going to have a harder time arguing for a high grade if you've sort of opted out of this major portion of the class. So make sure you do these. Don't worry too much about writing long enough or deep enough or anything. Just any kind of participation to kind of show your work, show that you've done the reading, show that you're prepared. That's all I can ask. So please do that. I arranged. If you have a hard time finding it, I did actually change something a little bit in Canvas that might make it easier to find these discussion pages. Let me show you what I did. This is going to take a second to load. So I just put the discussions link into the Canvas navigation. It wasn't in there before. It was just like you could find these within the navigation of a module, but I think it's easier to find. Like it's better to provide multiple ways to get to something. So that's another way you can get to the discussion page. So take a look at these. There's 2 this week. I might add a third, but maybe not, where it's like reading journal number 1. And for that one, that was for Monday, but I just asked you to look at that chapter 3 from Understanding Video Games and kind of summarize one thinker's point of view. For reading journal number 2, I asked you yesterday to take a look at a couple of different points of view in the ludology narratology discussion and kind of discuss and compare and contrast those points of view. So a couple of you have already done that, so great, good job. Many of you still need to do that, so please do that. Right, so and today, looking at the schedule again, I'm lecturing right now. Your homework, your on your own work, is going to be to take a look at some content from Metagaming, the book, and I've got a link to it here. There's links in different places, but part of what I want to talk about today is how to read the book. So bear with me. I'll show you how to do that. And then also, I'd like for you to play a metagame. This is a game created by Patrick Lemieux and Stephanie Bollock. It's called Triforce. They've got a link in the book, but I found that version doesn't work. But this version does, or at least it did for me. So you go click on this one, and I can share it also. This is their itch page, itch.io page, and I'll just put it in the live stream channel. Here's a link to the on itch.io. So yeah, the Triforce, right? So play Triforce. You can certainly play Footnotes also. If you look around a bit, you could probably also find a playable version of 99 Exercises in Play or some of their other works, but Triforce at least does work. I was able to play it this morning on my Mac, and it looks like they have downloadable versions for Mac, Windows, and Linux. So these seem to be up to date. So I would, I encourage you to try it out. If you have tech issues playing these, let me know, and I might be able to troubleshoot. With the Mac versions, I don't know if you've downloaded much software from the internet, but on a Mac, oftentimes when you try to run software that you downloaded from the internet, you have, as opposed to the App Store, you have to right click on it to open it in order to get the option to say, yes, I'm sure I want to open this. Otherwise, your Mac is going to be like, hey, you can't open this, it's from the internet. And then that's all it says. So somebody's having a hard time with school this morning, it sounds like. So yeah, this is a game. I mean, I don't want to say the game speaks for itself. I think it does take some trial and error, but also some thinking to understand what's going on. And I recommend reading about it before you play it. So that's what's up. All right, so let's take a look at some things in here. Yeah, the real solution to the prisoner's dilemma. But it's also a way to think about metagaming, right? I mean, the game of mutually assured destruction, there's no way out of that. The only way out of it is to play a different game where we choose not to play the destruction game. We choose not to play the Cold War. We choose not to play tic-tac-toe. And that's a way of metagaming that game. It's one way to think about metagaming, and we're going to encounter several more in the course of this lecture. But as we go into this, I would like to propose that we play a metagame right now. Here's how it's going to work. This is my game board. It's up there. It's a single square, and it can be either filled in black or unfilled in white. So that's the entirety of the game board, and there's only one move I can make. I can either fill that board in or I can leave it blank. I can revoke my move, but that's the only move. It's either to do that or not to do that. So this is not the board. This is just a picture of it. This is what it looks like when it's unfilled, and this is what it looks like when it is filled. So these are my only two options: white or black, filled, unfilled, however you want to describe that. All right, so Colin's telling me that I got muted for copyrighted on the Twitch stream. I just noticed. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, so you all also have a game board in Discord, and it is in a channel called Metagaming. And I've set this channel, I believe, so you can't actually comment in the channel. It's just a channel that exists for the purpose of letting you play the game yourself. And you have similarly only two moves you can make, or one move, but two different positions you can play. You can either play white or black, and you do that by clicking on the emoji underneath that phrase, "Let's play a metagame." You can click the white square or the black square. And that's your way of playing the game. That's your game board. That's your way of signifying whichever it is. So you move by clicking the white square or the black square, but clicking them both, like having them both clicked at the same time, is cheating, so don't do that. You can play your move at any time, starting now, and you can, just going from now to the end of the lecture, you can play that move either way. Just the rule is you can't have both clicked at the same time. So that's, you're on your honor not to break that rule, but that's the rule, right? Okay, so I play, and I'm going to keep playing by changing the state of my game board in the slideshow. So this is my game board again, and it's going to appear on every slide after this, and it will be either filled in like this, black, or it'll be empty, white, right? So that's my move that I'm going to be playing as I continue saying some things and talking through some other points. Your move, or your option as you watch this lecture, is to click either the white or the black square to play your piece. Okay, so so here's again the rules. You can make your move at any time, or you can elect not to move. You can change it at any time. You can only select white or black. You can click whichever one to deselect it if you need to. And then here's how we determine the outcome. So at the end of the lecture, if my square is black and yours is white, I win. If yours is black and mine is white, you win. If we're both black, if both of our squares are black, then we both lose. If both are white, we both tie. And that's it, right? We both win. If they're both unfilled or white, if they are both filled in or black, then we both lose. Okay, so classic. This is actually a version of the classic prisoner's dilemma from game theory, but this is a slight variation. Also, the game is basically I'm getting this from the Metagaming book. Like the authors of that book play a very similar game with you as you read their book. All right, so here's again the kind of matrix of the different states of gameplay. We've got or this different outcomes that are possible here, right? So this is the table that we will consult at the end of the lecture or that you can consult at the end of the lecture to determine whether or not we have any winners among us. Now I've already made my moves. That's why I haven't shared my slides in an editable link to my slides yet, or the direct link to my slideshow, because that would allow you to peek ahead and see my final move. But I will share it afterwards. That's just to kind of play along here. And really, there's not a lot in these slides, to be honest. So it's really just letting me play the game. All right, so that's the rule. That's the game. It's going to keep going throughout this, right? So I'm not going to comment on it anymore until we get to the end. Yeah, it is. So it is this is the dilemma. Okay, so the book we're talking about, this is a book called Metagaming, and it's called, it's got a long subtitle, Playing, Competing, Spectating, Cheating, Trading, Making, and Breaking Video Games. It's by Stephanie Bollock and Patrick Lemieux. And this is that's what they look like. That's their pictures. And this is a book that is published on a platform called Manifold. It's a book published by the University of Minnesota Press, and they are really I think of them as, along with MIT Press, those are the two leading publishers putting out books in the field of video game studies and just digital studies in general. I'm theoretically working on a book proposal, and I will probably send it to Minnesota first. So that's kind of, they are definitely in my wheelhouse. But they've supported open access, which is a great service that they provide to students and to anyone trying to learn. They've supported that through a project called Manifold, which is a special platform for reading, so accessing and annotating and having a conversation on a particular book. It's kind of like what you get from Hypothesis, if you may have used that plugin or encountered it in some way, but it's built into a single package in a single platform, and you don't have to install any other plugins, and also it's done in a way that lets the authors have some control over what comments appear on their work, which is a criticism of Hypothesis, where Hypothesis lets anyone say anything about any website, which could be used for abuse. But this doesn't do that. So let me show you what this looks like on the actual website. And this is the link in various places in Canvas. I'll just link to it now here. Ooh, my stomach's growling. Here's the Manifold link to Metagaming. I'm posting this in Discord. Oh yeah, I'll just go, since I think the sound may have gotten muted on War Games, I'm going to go ahead and, I don't need to. You can find the link if you really are interested. It's not super important. But this is the where you can read it online. So take a look. Click read online, and here we go. It's got a lot of the traditional paratextual material for a book, and including a table of contents. These are links, so you can click on these to go to any part of the book. As an e-reader, I think this is much nicer on the eyes than a lot of the e-readers that you get through like the library, like the Progressed one. I think is garbage, but this is much easier to read and also work with. I think you can even you can change different parts of it even. Like we can switch to sans serif font if we want, but I like the serif. So yeah, and as you scroll down, I'm not logged in currently on this browser, so I'm just seeing public highlights and annotations. But everything you see here that's green, if it's highlighted like this, that means someone has highlighted that and they made that highlight public. If they've added a comment, then it's underlined, so we can click on this and see, that's my comment that I made about 2 years ago. So I have a few public comments on this, I think. But that's the idea. That's what you're seeing. If you find it, I actually find it kind of distracting to read with other people's highlights and annotations visible. So you can actually just turn these off here. You can decide if you want to see them or not. I think the tricky thing with highlights is that if something's highlighted, either because you did it or because someone else did it, as you read it, your eye kind of just sees the highlighted parts and not everything else. And so you're not really evaluating and trying to understand it kind of sentence by sentence. You're just kind of skimming the surface and looking for the highlights. That's a reasonable thing to do in certain kinds of books, like textbooks. This is a book that I think you get more from it if you read it as a book, like if you read it kind of word by word, essentially. So I recommend doing that. I think you'll understand it better and appreciate it more if you read it directly, and maybe use your own highlights as opposed to looking at other people's highlights. So that's what we're looking at here. The other thing that's cool about this book, although it unfortunately doesn't work anymore, I'm not sure why, but there are several objects included in here. It's like software objects. And if you look at the table of contents, you can kind of see the structure. So there's chapters. This is chapter 1. I'm in the introduction right now, but there's chapter 1, which is a survey of 6 metagames, and then they've got their own metagame right here called Triforce. And then there's Stretched Skulls, which is another chapter about anamorphic games. And then there's a game that they provided to go with that one. For each of these, they have their own metagame. And some of these might still work, but I found at least this one doesn't. When you look at it here, like this link, manifold.umn.edu/99exercises, that no longer works for some reason. But these little like cube icons do. But like they take you to a version of the game that may be out of date and it may not work. So it's your mileage will really vary a lot. I'm pretty sure. Well, yeah, we can find. I mean, if you really want to play 99 exercises, I'm pretty sure Patrick has a early version of that on his website that is playable. And I can find that for you if you're really interested. But I think watching the video also gives you a basic idea of it. But for each of these, I think they make sense if you they make more sense if you read their short description to understand like what they were trying to do with these metagames and what they think these metagames have to say about the game that they are based on or critiquing. So that's something I recommend. But as far as like required reading, I'm really just asking you to play the Triforce game because that's the one I do know works. So I hope that you are able to try it out and have some success with it. You can see some screenshots there. All right, so that's going to be your on your own work for today. So let's get back to the slides. And really, all I have in the next several slides are basically quotations or paraphrases from the book, because I think they've got a lot of really nice ways of expressing really complex and interesting ideas. And as far as proceeding through the rest of the lecture, I thought I would just talk about some of these, like actually just look at some of their quotes and kind of explain them, maybe show some examples if they occur to me, or if examples occur to you or questions occur to you, then put those in the Discord and we can chat about those for the next few minutes. Okay, so one of the biggest ideas here is trying to understand what kinds of thing Patrick and Stephanie mean by the term metagaming. The word itself, metagaming, does have other uses, and I would say that the authors here probably they do include those other uses. So a context you might be used to this in is, I mentioned this the other day, but like in role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, metagaming would be a kind of cheating where you use knowledge that your character shouldn't have to make some kind of in-game decision. And that would be considered cheating because you're bringing something outside of the game world into the game world, and that might be considered unfair by other players. But it's a way of kind of playing outside of the game. I actually came across an interesting metagame and got sort of sucked into it over the past couple days. And I believe this is a metagame. This is a game where I'm trying to purchase a graphics card, and I don't know if any of you have had the experience with this game, but it is an extremely difficult game. So the challenge is that graphics cards are they're very, very hard to find, like good ones. So the one I'm interested in is the NVIDIA RTX 3080, and you can't buy them. So, or at least you can't buy them for like less than 200% markup from scalpers on eBay. So the metagame is trying to figure out strategies to get those away from scalpers, and there are several Discord servers and Twitter bots set up that scan different retailers, and whenever those bots detect, hey, Best Buy has this in stock, it sends a notice through the Discord servers and the Twitter page and everything else saying, hey, there's something in stock. And I played that game for several hours last night of like just sort of watching that and then trying to get to the shopping cart fast enough to actually check it out. I got really close a couple times on a 3070, but I don't really want a 3070, so I was just kind of playing it to see how it would go. But I mean, you literally, the challenge is like by the time the bot has detected it and posted it, you're already a few seconds at best away, behind it having shown up on the website. So you have literally seconds to grab it, or it's gone, and they're gone in seconds. It's really fascinating how fast these get sold out. So I don't know. The metagame yesterday was somebody posted a rumor in one of the servers that Best Buy was going to drop a whole bunch of 3080s between 9 and 12 a.m. yesterday. And so, like, after the lecture yesterday, I got on that server and everybody was like, when is it going to happen? When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And it never happened. So that was kind of the metagame of like messing with each other's expectations and kind of winding people up. And there was a lot of frustration shared in that Discord server. Anyway, if any of you have some experience playing the graphics card purchasing game and have any tips that you can share, I would happily hear them. I've read various guides and tips and things. I'm doing my best, but I don't have, I can't sit there hitting F5 constantly all day. So I have to, choose my strategies. Or if any of you happen to have an extra RTX 3080 that you don't mind selling to me for, retail price, then that would be great. But anyway, so that was an example of a metagame. Like, that's an example of a game that was constructed socially and around an arbitrary like problem and challenge set up by NVIDIA, basically, by not producing enough cards. But the metagame became that sort of like, when's it going to drop game, and that was what we played on that Discord server by expecting it to happen and then sort of messing with each other when it didn't happen. But that's one idea of metagaming. This statement I have on the screen right now. This is a statement from the book. It's paraphrased, but I think it gets at the heart of what we're talking about. And they actually posed this as a question in the book, but I think it's also I think the answer is pretty clearly implied. So I've put it as a statement here, which is that video games are not games. They are merely equipment for creating metagames. So what do they mean by that? That's kind of, this really gets to a lot. So it helps us by thinking about what we mean when we talk about playing a game. So the metagame is, when we talk about, let's say I was playing Zelda the other day. When we say that, the set of things that we mean by playing Zelda the other day includes many more things than what can be identified as part of that cartridge in that Nintendo that day. So the thing that we mean by Zelda, Legend of Zelda, whichever one, is much more than the code, much more than the platform, much more than the design of the game, the rules, and so on. It's that entire experience of sitting down and playing it with somebody, avoiding other people so you can play it. All of the things that we put into that experience of being there to sit down and play it could be considered the actual experience. Like, that's what we're really talking about. And so that itself is the Legend of Zelda in that sense is a metagame, if we bear in mind that explanation that what we mean by the Legend of Zelda isn't the software, the code, the design, the history, etc., but the experience of playing it. That's the metagame. Let's get some more examples and some more phrases out here. This is, I think, a great expression of it too, because it kind of gets back to that idea of what are we talking about. The greatest trick the video game industry ever pulled was convincing the world that video games were games in the first place. So there's a lot going on in this quote as well. If we think about the video game, actually, hang on a second, let me grab one. So here's a stack. So the trick, and these are actually great examples of it. The trick is that, or the lie is that this is a video game. Am I holding it up the right way? This is Pitfall by Activision. The lie is that this is a game, right? So it is a video game, but the lie is that it's a game. The game, it's rattling. Shouldn't be rattling. This was the one I think didn't work the other day, right? That might be why. I did. If you remember, I was when I played my Channel F cartridge, and one of the carts was like rattling, and I opened it up and opened the cartridge, and it's got just two tiny little chips that I think must be ROM chips, but they both had come unglued from the PCB, and they were just like rattling around loose in the cartridge. So I'm gonna figure out. I don't know. Let's see if I can figure out how to glue them back on. And they were glued. It wasn't soldered on. They were actually like actually glued onto the PCB. So I don't know why. Anyway, I don't know if I can open this one or not, but I don't think it's supposed to rattle. The point is that the lie is that the game, the fun that you can have, the experience of it is something that can be sold, that can be bought and sold. That's the lie of the video game industry. So, yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's it, right? The idea is that it's commodifying play. It's taking the experience of having fun playing a video game and selling it to you for $60 and saying, now you're having fun because you purchased this thing. That's the lie of capitalism, but it's also the lie of video game producers as capitalists, as participants in that system where software, we pretend that software can be property and it can be bought and sold, owned and not owned. All right, so the metagame is, the game is always elsewhere. That's another way to think of it, right? It's never here. Like the things that we think of and that we experience when we play Pitfall are not in this cartridge. It's in the TV, it's in the living room, it's in the space where we play this. That's the location of the game, but also the time of the game is, what we do when we play it. And what we do when we play it could be all kinds of things. It could be trying to get to the end. It could be speed running it. It could be making fun of it. It could be setting up some arbitrary rules that we create for ourselves, like permadeath kind of things. That's the game. Like that's what we actually experience, and that's what we actually really mean when we talk about Pitfall. Okay. So, and this is another version of that statement, that since the commercial release of the first home consoles in the 1970s, video games have been complicit in the transformation of play into a privatized form of consumption. Again, this is the complicity here. This is their complicity in that lie that we are bringing Berserk home. Like remember the Berserk commercial. The idea that we're bringing it home, consuming it. The idea that having access to software and consuming that software is equivalent to play is again a lie. I mean, the thing that we think of as play might be supported and enabled by this, but that's a different thing than saying that this is play, right? So, what the heck? There's a big hole in my adventure cartridge. I keep getting distracted by these, but I don't think that's well. Okay, maybe that's supposed to be there. I don't know. There's a rip in the sticker. Okay, so another quote that helps think about other implications of this. Video games, they conflate the rules of a game with the mechanics of the equipment. And for this quote, equipment is a special word here, and for Bollock and Lemieux, what we're talking about, one of their statements essentially is that the video game, the cartridge, the software, this is not a game, this is equipment for making a game, or equipment for making a game possible, and you experience that game as you play there. What they mean here is that the conflation of the rules and the mechanics, this is something that we kind of did earlier when we talked about the analysis that we got from Katie Salen and Eric Zimmerman. And Bollock and Lemieux actually, disagree with Salen and Zimmerman, and I take their point, which is that in a game, when we talk about the rules of a game, we talk about the rules of soccer. We don't include the rules of physics when we describe those rules. We don't include the fact that a ball will fall if dropped, or it will move through the air at a certain rate based on the friction with the air, which will change depending on humidity and stuff. We don't include those rules. However, a game would. I mean, a game would have to include those rules, create those structures, and define them, or else we wouldn't be able to experience it. But to consider those rules is kind of weird because they're not like the kinds of rules that we think of as games. Like I created a rule for my Prisoner's Dilemma game here. There's nothing that forces us to follow those rules, but to play the game, you choose to follow those rules, and that's what rules are like. Rules are optional kinds of things, and we talked about that in all those definitions of play. But if you're playing a FIFA game, you don't have an option to choose what sort of gravity you want or whether you want to enforce gravity. It's just part of the thing that you're doing. So to call it a rule is kind of strange, and to think of it instead as equipment that makes a game possible, I think makes more sense. Let's see. So Kate's asked the question here, isn't that true for all games commodifying play? Yeah, again, it depends on what you mean by games. So I don't think like a game of Calvin Ball or my kids have a game they play called Hide and Struck, and I don't think that's commodified. I think it's definitely play. I think it has rules. The rules of Hide and Struck are that you have to play in the dark, so it's outside. You have to, as you're running, if you're the seeker, as you're running around, you have to be singing All Star. And then if you find somebody, you have to yell, "Get out of my swamp." These are the rules that they've created that are arbitrary and silly. But they, it's not commodified, except in maybe in the fact that it sort of plays into the branding and the meme of Shrek. But the so the so that's the I think what we're talking about then is not. I don't think all games are commodified. In other words, is what I'm saying. All video games are. Yeah, I mean the idea of a video game as a product that you can pay for is that's what we mean by commodification, and that's a lie. I mean when I say it's a lie, it's just the idea that we've purchased play, we've purchased fun, that's the lie. Like obviously we have literally purchased a game. We do actually have a license to own or circumvent licenses to own games sometimes. Okay, so let's think. This is another quote that helps us think a bit more about how metagaming works and how metagames work to modify the thing of the game that they exist around or near or in relation to. And a key thing here is the idea of a preposition. And as they say here, prepositions are to parts of speech as metagames are to games. And if you think about prepositions, here's some examples of prepositions here: before, after, between, during, around, above, beyond, next to, like, different from. Like this, a preposition situates concepts, nouns in space. Let me show you an example of how this works just grammatically. If I can, let me see. I have used this in one of my Twitter bots. And I think this is the right Twitter name. So yeah, hopefully this has put out some good examples recently. So this is, this will hopefully work. Let me find one that's easier to look at. So this is a Twitter bot that I created, and no, that's not the one I wanted. Clicked on, I wanted this one. I wanted to look at this one. Okay. So I kind of have to explain what's going on here, but I think I can. This is a bot that uses machine learning. It uses actually Microsoft Azure's machine learning platform. And what it does is it looks on Flickr and it chooses 2 random images on Flickr, so photographs. And it sends those photographs to Microsoft's machine learning, and that machine learning tries to generate a reasonable caption for that image. It tries to list the things that it sees in that image. And this is like a sort of the cutting edge of machine learning and machine vision. Like it's an art that's it's a technology that's evolving and getting better, and different systems have pros and cons. But I'm just using Microsoft's in this case. And what it's done here for this particular poem that it generated is it found one image that it described as, that it saw as a small bird perched on a tree branch. So that was actually generated by the machine learning. Like the machine learning gave me that. It found another image that it thought was reasonable to describe as a bridge over a body of water. So that's the other image. So it's those 2 images. And then all I've done here is I've taken those, I've rearranged it so it's like visually kind of looks like a poem. But conceptually, all I've done is I've taken those 2 descriptions and then I've added a preposition between them. And by doing that, I feel at least, these often accomplish pretty compelling and interesting little poems. So a small bird perched on a tree branch near a bridge over a body of water. Like that to me suggests a time and a place and a mood, and it does the work of poetry there. And I think the near is really what anchors that image in my mind. And this was generated I guess randomly. I mean, I was going to say algorithmically, but it's really essentially random. It just chooses, my code just chooses from a list of prepositions, but by choosing those prepositions, oftentimes it accomplishes, and I think most of the time actually, it accomplishes something pretty nice sounding or pretty interesting sounding, and I like the way it does that. But again, the preposition is the anchor. That's the key. That's the linchpin. And that, if this were a game, the metagame would be that. That's what the metagame does for the game. The game would be the images, and the metagame would be the near that anchors that game into an actual experience, a lived experience, a lived space, and so on. Okay, so I think, sorry, just checking out. Colin's been asking a couple questions on the Twitch chat, so let me just see if I can address that really quickly. What do I think about ROMs? I mean, I assume you're talking about the semi-illegal distribution of ROMs as cartridges. I mean, it's cheating if it's illegal. Sometimes it's not illegal, but if it is illegal, it's just that still underscores the problem, which is the premise, which is the premise is that these are property, like that's the game. I personally try not to violate copyright law, but it certainly happens. But I think the fact that it had its life, its origin as a commodity is that's sort of like the end of its life. Sure, yeah. I mean, if you don't actually pay for a game, and like these that are produced by, this is Beck's question. What about Flash games? Well, they don't work at all anymore. But the idea of a free game that you find online, like on itch.io, yeah, again, I mean that's fine. But this is getting a little bit away from the topic. But the idea that it's distributed for free, the fact that that's a noteworthy feature of it, just sort of reinforces the overarching. That I think also underscores the lie of the premise that's something that should be bought or sold. Now, I'm not trying to make a Marxist argument here. Like, I'm not sort of saying everything should be free. I'm just simply pointing out how the lie is that is still the same whether we pay for it or not. The lie is that the game is the software, the game is the code, the game is the platform. The truth is that the game is what we do when we play it, and I think we all probably agree with that. I think that's something that's fairly common sense and intuitive. It's just we're trying to express it in a specialized way using this term of metagaming, so it's all so the game experience is what we're really talking about, not what's embedded in the software. The idea of it being a lie is really just that's how the video game industry justified its existence, was by selling these products. Yeah, and I think the answer is the same to Colin's question that he just posed there. I mean, if you mean online ROMs, if you mean like you're playing it through a browser, like it doesn't really. I think you might be missing the point. I think the point is that whatever the game is, like if you think of the game as the software, you're wrong. It's the experience of playing the software. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the game. This is all pretty abstract, obviously. So I've been trying to work through it with examples that occur to me as I've been talking. I think I think the book does a better job of explaining these things. So that's why I hope you will read it after I wrap up here in a few minutes. A few other things, right? So if we're thinking about what we're doing with this is another implication of this idea. Another implication of the idea that metagaming is that move where we're the ones deciding how to play the game, which is, of course, what always happens, that we're always already doing unconsciously. It turns the software, which is otherwise autonomous and abstract, into an actual game. Like we turn it into a game by playing it. And essentially we're designing our experience by making choices about how to play it or what to do with it or whether to play it at all. And that's what makes us essentially designers of our own experiences. I think that's kind of an empowering way to think about it. Okay, so that is the last quote I wanted to share, and that is the end of the game. So the game is over. Looks like I'm on the black square. So let's see how you all did. It looks like 5 of you lost, and actually all of you lost, right? But I did too. So essentially we've played. Oh, somebody just changed theirs. Essentially, if we think of me playing versus all of you collectively, I lost. But individually, if we think of it as a series of one-on-one games, me playing against each of you individually, I beat 4 of you now, or 5 of you now. So one of you switched back, and then 5 of you lost with me. So I'm at 6 white and 5 black, but that doesn't count for mine. So that's actually 4 black that are co-losers with me, and then 5 whites that are losers to my winner. So yeah, that's how it goes. That's how it works. Of course, it doesn't matter, right? And whether or not you win, you know whether or not you did it. I'm not going to look at who clicked what, and it doesn't really matter. But you know in your mind, in your heart, whether you're a winner or a loser. And I really think you all are winners. But yeah, so that's a kind of metagame, because and hopefully it helps illustrate the point, which is if you think of the game as this square, that doesn't tell you anything. Like, it's really not the square. The game is the Discord channel and me talking about it and your decision about what to do with it. And you bring to that all kinds of things. You bring things like that you may know already about the prisoner's dilemma, which is the basic structure that we're using here. It brings what you expect me to do as a player based on what you think of me and what kinds of strategies I might employ. Like, you might have, if you look back at that for the past few slides, I've been kind of on a white streak, so maybe you thought, well, that's just going to be how it stays for the rest of the game, so I can play against that expectation. Or maybe Dr. Whalen is the kind of person that's going to try to trick us, try to lull us into complacency by keeping it white for a while and then switching to black at the last second, which is what happened, in fact. Or maybe it's just random and I can just guess. So all of those different expectations and beliefs are the game. Like, that's the game we're playing. We're not playing the game in this game board. We're playing it in our minds. And that's, that act to move from the game board to our mind, that's metagaming. That's the meta part here. That's the anchoring of it into a lived experience that we just shared together while I was doing that lecture. So yeah, it's okay if you lost. It doesn't matter, right? Because it's a game. And that's kind of one of the things that we know about games, is that if it's truly a game, if it's truly play, then it doesn't matter if we win or lose, right? I mean, it's something that we can elect to use or not. So anyway, so that's metagaming. I hope this made sense. As I said, I think this is inherently very abstract. I mean, that's the work here. This is whereas a lot of the thinkers I was talking about yesterday were coming from the field of philosophy or psychology or anthropology or history or whatever, and using that background to talk about games. I think in this case, we are looking at 2 writers who are using games to do philosophy. So they are really doing philosophy, but with games as kind of the engine that lets them drive their ideas, and also communicate their ideas. So it's sort of the inversion of those, and that's why it's fairly abstract and can be approached in different ways that might be equally valid. So let's take a look at the assignment, and then I'll wrap things up for today. Just to see if you have any questions about this. As everything in this class, it's fairly open-ended. So if you have an idea about how to approach this, it's almost certainly right. That's how to do it. But I do have a couple suggestions here that might be helpful. So I've got some quotes, and this is a link just to the book, but actually the specific quote, I think. Yeah, well, the introduction. So certainly read the introduction. I think the introduction does a great job of laying out the ideas, and all of the quotes that I talked about in the slides today were from this introduction. So if you want to see them in context and probably explained better than I did, then certainly read that. Also, if you want to see more examples, chapter 1 actually is also good. Chapter 1 is kind of long, but it does go through several, there's a Calvin ball. It goes through several different types of metagames, 6 different types, and I think it's useful to see the kinds of things that you might be able to do. These are mostly things that already exist. So this is like a documentary film that talks about Braid, among others. And then there's also they also talk about like the metagame of esports commentary and several others. So take a look. But that's it's good, right? So it's kind of even more detailed than the introduction. So that's what I would recommend if you're kind of lost about what a metagame is or how to approach this. That's what you should do, is take a look at those things. And then hopefully that will generate some ideas. Okay, so what you're doing is thinking about this idea of equipment for making metagames. And you've got a video game that you played last week that you got to know pretty well. And so I'm proposing that you use that game as your equipment and then use that to make your own metagame. Bearing in mind that the experience of playing it at all is also an act of making your own metagame. But here I'm asking you to think programmatically and think consciously about and concretely about metagaming in order to make your own metagame out of that. As an example of a metagame based on a game, we've got the Triforce game that I'd like you to look at that uses The Legend of Zelda as the equipment for making a metagame about The Legend of Zelda. So take a look at that for another kind of inspiration, possibly something that you might want to do something like. I don't expect you to program anything for this. If you want to, I'm not going to stop you, but I think that would probably not be the best use of your time. I think the better use of your time would be to think of it in terms of design. And so what I've asked you to do is create a design document, or really just a design sketch. So I want you to think concretely about your game and describe it in detail, in enough detail that it seems reasonable. Like it seems like something that could actually exist if you had time to program it, or if you could hire a programmer or something like that. I would like you to have these 4 elements at least, and possibly some other things if it helps explain your idea. So you need to have a description. So actually, what is this? And you could probably organize this like a report with headings. So like the first heading should be a description. The second heading should be like this interface where you can discuss different ways that it looks. If it uses the same interface as the game you already played, I still want an interface. Like I still want you to sketch that out and show me what it looks like. The exegesis, that's your explanation of what you think it means. And here I'm specifically hoping that you will identify a specific verb here, but these are really verbs that are like prepositions. These are verbs that anchor a relationship. So I've got suggestions here: criticize, improves, expands, exploits, vindicates, or some other verb. I want you to tell me what verb explains the relationship between your metagame and the game that it is based on, or that it's using. All right, and then context. So find an example of metagaming, and this could be something that's mentioned in the book, or if you can think of other examples that you've seen or that that occur to you, then you can certainly do that as well. But find at least one other metagame that already exists that you think your game is somehow like. All right, so and Colin has posed a question on Twitch: can we use a separate game that already exists besides our assigned game? Like if I have a ROM emulator, can I use a game on that rather than Portal? Yeah, probably. I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. Do you have one in mind? That's the question I just typed in Twitch chat for Colin. He's on the Twitch instead of Discord. I don't know if this one actually works anymore, but there was a great metagame. Okay, I mean, that sounds fine to me. I don't know if it'll work anymore. Probably not. This is probably a Flash game, but I can't remember. Yeah, it looks like it is. But ROM Check Fail was or is a game where essentially it presents as a glitched out set of games where you start playing as, I don't remember the exact sequence, but you start playing Pac-Man, but then like the game glitches into Super Mario Brothers, but you're still Pac-Man, and so you have to try to play Super Mario Brothers as Pac-Man with just the movement capabilities of Pac-Man. Pretty interesting game, and definitely a meta game, but it looks like it doesn't work. So at least this one doesn't. This version is probably a Flash game. I don't remember for sure, but if it is, then someone may have ported it already. All right, so I saw another question here. I would like, so Anna asked the question, is this project one that can be done in groups? I really want you to do this on your own. This is because it's not like for the commercial, I think it made sense to do it in groups because a lot of you, like you and Ryan, for example, like you collaborated on the filming and the editing, and so it definitely benefited from having 2 people on it. But for this one, I really want to make sure that you're getting these ideas, so I want to see your individual ideas on this, if that's all right. Just answering Twitch question there. Okay, so that's the idea. So it is nominally due today, and that's because we don't have much time left. But if you need more time, it's okay. I'm not going to be adding another project or anything like that. I might add another reading journal for some things tomorrow, but focus on the metagaming project. That's more important because doing it successfully will really demonstrate your understanding of these ideas, which is, it is a challenge. I mean, these are challenging and abstract ideas, so I want to see your best effort at working with them. Be happy to chat about this if you'd like. I mean, if you have questions about your idea or just kind of what to do here, feel free to set up a time to chat later. I'll be online all day, probably in and out, but I'll be available if you, especially if you schedule an appointment using my thing on my website. That's at, well, it's on my website, but I'll just type it in chat here. Here's my contact page. If you want to talk about this project or anything else. And so I'm saying out loud the things that I'm typing. But it's just zachwhalen.net/contact. So on that, you can reserve a time to talk if you want, or email, Discord are fine too. Okay, good. So I'm seeing no other questions. I'm going to wrap things up, I suppose. So I hope you'll have a good day. Maybe watch the inauguration if you want to. Should be, I guess it's starting soon. I don't know, actually. I didn't look. But I think it's at noon. Anyway, thanks for watching the stream. I'll put this online and try to clean up some things in Canvas. I'm still sort of working on that, but I do have at least a mental idea, a mental picture in my head of how I want to organize things. So that should help me get things done. So I'm gonna wrap it up. Again, if you happen to have any tips on getting an RTX 3080, or if you happen to have an extra one for some reason, let me know. The MSRP on that is $700, so I'm not really wanting to pay more than that. So I guess wish me luck. But also, if you have any insight on that, or if you've been successful, I'm kind of I keep coming across all these different tips and these bots and these Discord servers where people are saying that they've actually bought something, but I don't know these people. They could all be lying. I kind of it would be kind of reassuring to hear from someone I actually know that they actually succeeded at acquiring an RTX 3080. But so far they haven't. I posted that question on Twitter yesterday, and then someone was like, "Oh yeah," and they had an RTX 3090, and I can't justify that. Those are much more expensive. Anyway, that's all for the stream today. I hope you're doing well. See you later.